Namaste. Hello, everybody. This is Jo Maldonado from Griffin's Claw, the School of Practical Magic. And I have a fabulous interview today with our dear professor, Professor Mary Helen Schmidt, and she is going to be teaching remote viewing this evening. But before we do that, we just thought it would be a great idea to do a Q&A today so everybody can get a feel of what is remote viewing and what does it actually do. So let's see, someone is dinging, so I'm going to make sure it's nobody here. So Mary Helen, thank you and welcome.
Thanks.
I've got to tell, well, first let me ask, can you explain to everybody what remote viewing is?
Well, you know, it's funny because there's so many ways that people think of what it is.
Yeah.
So you have the original, and that I go into that in the class, a little bit of the history of it, but the military's name for it, and they have this long, they love acronyms, you know.
Yeah.
Long titles for everything. But because they had people that focused on finding targets. It was very military aspects. It was very, the intention was very to help, you know, our country or whatever. And yet I know, and I didn't go historically way back because I know this was done forever because you've had people, seers and prophets and and viewers, you know, that's what they called seers, you know. Mm-hmm. So there's it's been around forever. And I think for me, what I did was putting the class together was to look at the different aspects or the different ways that people do it. And they may call it this, or they may call it this, or they may call it remote viewing, or some of them call it controlled remote viewing, or there's aspects of that. Then there's people that just call it astral travel that are a little bit more, because you're still viewing something that's not there with you. Mm-hmm. You know, whether you're using other tools to support that, like the dowsing or whatever, those things can also be brought into it. You also have I even think shamanism is the same thing. It's really the energy. You're being in that field, you know, that quantum field. So it's all based on the idea that you, in this place right here, can view and or receive information from any place else in the world or outside of our world. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be on this planet.
Right. And so, it's interesting you mentioned how people do it different ways and they call it different things, whether it's a seer or so on. And I know that you and I have had the opportunity of working on a number of cases, you know, for months as we were traveling along a remote viewing path and just working on cases on missing persons. Mm-hmm. And I saw information differently than you did, but yet, you know, together we could put together a picture of what we were seeing. And I know one of the big things that we were taught, you know, well, that I picked up for me, which works for me, is it's almost like you mentioned shamanism, you know, jumping into the other person almost, who is most likely deceased, because we were working for missing people that were, I don't think there were any, well, maybe there was one or two live people that we got, but most of them were passed away because of some crime that happened to them. But I could see what was in front of them, to the side of them, to the back of them, and to the other side of them. And yet you could take your pendulum, and you were like a whiz with this, you know. You could, well, yeah, you could pinpoint.
But it supports the feeling you get. It does support the feeling you get, because when you have, you know, and that's a really different thing too with remote viewing. Like, there are what I call purists, you know, there's people that are purists. They don't go for all the woo woo, you know, that's that military aspect of it. And we'll do a little bit of that, where it's plain Jane, you know, it's not any necessarily information. It's not, but even having telepathy, having, you're a seer, being, you know, whether you hear, see, or feel, or
all the clairs,
all of the clairs come into play. So you actually, what you want to do is, the difference is, yes, you can receive information, but you also ask questions. And that's the important thing, especially when you're intending to remote view, is you're asking a lot of questions. You are like you're the recorder, you're the, but there's the interviewer, there's the reporting part of it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So you ask the questions. Well, what does it sound like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What color do you see? There's all these things that go into it. So I think the good thing about remote viewing in some ways, because again, it's like you and I working together. It's not that any one person says, oh, it's that. It's just that, it means you just give the feelings, the structures, the things around, that all adds up to the big picture.
Yeah.
You don't have to have like, oh my God, it's that one thing right there. You have to realize that there's many things that could be, our own energy can put a little twist on it. So,
right. But I think that's the great part of working as a team with somebody, that you both, can receive validation on the information that you received.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why in that email that I sent out, for those of you that, that had an opportunity to see that, Mary Helen and I were in front of this big blackboard that I have here in my office, and we were, actually trying to help someone find a missing pet. That's very difficult for me because animals travel very, very quickly. Especially dogs or cats. I mean, they travel fast. And when you're looking for someone that's missing, if you're not like right there, by the time you get there, that animal is going to be gone. He's going to be across the street under the bench, or, or hiding from you or whatever. So I think it was very fascinating when you and I were working on this, that we had this blackboard in front of us, and I could draw what I was seeing, and then you drew what you were seeing. And then one of the important things that I mentioned, it's really good to have in remote viewing, is to have a point person, that can validate the information objectively. It's not like you and me, but objectively. And so we were able to get a map. I think you're the one that found the map of the area. And, we were able to find pictures, and what I was seeing and what you were seeing actually were locations. So can anybody do this, what you and I were doing?
Yes, and it goes along with, like, because you're using your intuitive tools, you're enhancing those. The funny thing is about remote, obviously there's many ways you can remote view. So intuitives, I think, are really good at, like, whatever their magic is, their skill is, but going through that kind of energy, whether it's seeing, hearing, feeling, whatever, people, anybody can, we all are, we're just depending on how we want to tap into it.
Right.
And then allowing our stuff to get out of the way, just as you would any other time you want to get information, because it can be clouded by your own emotion or by the emotion of others. And so anyone can do it. It's a matter of really how you want to do it, the way that it's most comfortable, because to me, it's the military kind of way of doing it is very uncomfortable. I will say
it's very regimented.
And I did take a course. I have a certificate in remote viewing of that one, but it's really, really, they don't even care. They don't care if you get it at the end. They don't care at all. It's like, as long as you have the descriptors though, that's the important piece. So that's kind of like with the psychic detective class too, that we took. It was more about looking at descriptors. What do you, are there rough edges? Are there this? Is there concrete? What does it feel like that's underneath someone? Or what do you see out in the distance? What kind of shapes? Because that could be a landmark. So, but everyone usually has, everybody here is intuitive, this intuitive ability to see, feel, hear, smell, taste, whatever. You allow that information to come into you and you record it. And really the recording of it is the important thing to look at. Just like you were saying, we sat and wrote and we looked at the map, and but putting it all together then is really the key to sometimes the outcome. So,
and also it may not be something that you do or can find someone within like 15 minutes. I mean, there's like psychic detectives, if you wanted to call them that actually do this, and it takes them a while. I mean, they go out to the properties and they go out and they see what they're feeling, is this the plant, or is that the tree, or is that the lake, or is that the bench? Is that the garage? Is that the car? They ask all these questions. Is that the one that them was feeling? And if I can just do a segue here, if anybody has any questions while we're chatting, there is an icon on the bottom of your screen that says chat. You can just click on that, and you can feel free, please, to ask any questions that you may have of Mary Helen. So anybody can do it. It's just a matter of training, right? Pretty much. And it seems like there's different ways of training, like you mentioned, the military way. And then I know you and I were trained a different way, with our teacher that we studied with. How many ways are there? I mean, is it like?
Well, I'm sure there's way more than I know, but I will say that the people that were involved in this military training, which there's a little history that I go into in the class, but in about 15, 20 years where the military developed this work, most of those are the people, some of those people are teaching it of their own form and fashion. They all kind of go a little different route with it. So some are more like, you have to do it like this, and you have your eyes open, and then you and then this one is more like closing your eyes and relaxing, and well, all of them really base getting on relax. So it's really about getting in that state.
So the class that you're teaching this evening, is that based on your quote toolbox of remote viewing that you formed after studying on these different ways of remote viewing?
Well, the class tonight is going through the different, because there is some interesting history to why the people got involved in it, what's happened to those people, and why we as intuitives and sensitives and compassionate people, why it's important to have that, because that gives you a little different angle than just a pure outcome. So then what I'll do is go into like 3 different people. I mean, and I give credit for the people that I've read about and have taken from, and then what I'm going to do too is then I will go through just explanations of each one, like kind of how you do it. I'll have some exercises so that I'm going to have people do, let's say, using astral projection, a little bit of that, because that's a lot of how people do it.
Right.
And that's fine. It's not per se, the whole thing isn't about that, but there'll be exercises, and I feel like that people enjoy doing it. I always like things to be experiential and to have fun with it. So however it comes, I don't want to just plop, because when I first started this one remote viewing class, I'm like, holy moly, this is not good. I'm just not getting anything out of it. But nevertheless, I still stuck to it. Yeah. And so it's nice when you can get the validations so that I can have something for you to view, and have an outcome and have something to go, oh, I got that color, or I got that feel, or I got that texture.
Right.
And I'll have another, I'm not going to go into shamanism, but you can also, I will touch on that lightly, but you still can go into non-ordinary reality, which is what you're doing when you're remote viewing.
Right.
So.
And I remember when one of the cases that you and I were working on, it was great because we actually received a package from our teacher of the actual items from that site. I believe there were stones or miscellaneous, and there was a package of things that we were working on in specific cases. So in that case, I think, again, you mentioned the clairs, it's all how you're using your gifts. Some people see things, some people hear them. So with you, is there a specific clair that you use to do your remote viewing? I would think that the gift of sight, maybe, right?
Maybe. Well, I mean, it is sometimes it's a visual, sometimes it's just a feeling that something is there, and then I ask, what is that more? Right. I ask more, like, what might that be? What does it? And again, this is in the remote viewing techniques, which is much more report and more just flow of information. Right. Just flow of information, not the feeling that, oh, I just think it's going to be that, or the feeling. And I see somebody wrote in, I tend to get a BAM reaction, initial gut feeling that has been validated. I find if I think too much stuff enters. Absolutely, absolutely true. If you think too much, that's what's not needed in remote viewing. No thinking.
Right.
You don't get to think at all.
Right.
So it's really about getting that left brain out of the way, keeping it happy.
Well, that's a
Right
good
brain.
one. Keep that left brain out of the way, right?
Yep. Absolutely the way and that's what they do when they do some of the longer, the trainings and stuff. It's
Mhm.
really training your brain to stop doing that. Like,
Mhm.
don't fill in. Don't let the left brain fill in with everything. You let
Right.
the right lead you.
Right, right. And I have, I do have a question on that. One of the questions is, it's all great, you know, you can see remote viewing out to see if, you know, looking for a lost dog or a lost cat. What are some of the ways that you have used remote viewing? How can we use remote viewing to help us on a daily basis or a weekly basis, even monthly?
Well, well, I do it. I mean, the biggest one is finding your keys or finding something, like I can't find my phone or whatever. But I do I don't per se use the purest remote viewing, that type of methodology.
Mhm.
Although that's because I haven't gone as deep into that. There's
Right.
more to that I probably will investigate. But
Yeah.
sitting with it, getting relaxed, getting your mind free, and looking, like, for example, a very simple thing, what do I see? And what I do is I just ask, okay, if I were those keys, where would I be? What do I see? It's
Right.
really that
Awesome.
simple.
So, okay, so you do the same
Sometimes I
shifting
do that.
into. Got it.
Sometimes I do that.
Got it.
Sometimes I shift with the person's energy
Mhm.
that lost them. I have a client that calls me when she can't find papers or she can't find something, and she'll say, "I can't find it anywhere." And I'll just say, and then I'll get a visual. I'll get a little visual, and it's not like the big picture. It's not a big, like, oh, I know exactly where it is. No, I don't. But I feel like the space. So I feel the space around it. So
Mhm.
putting that kind of in that out there, like asking either, where might it be? Can you bring that to me? Or if I were to go there, where's my, like, as if I'm a magnet, where would I be drawn to?
Right, right. And how
That's one other.
successful are you when you do that?
Hmm?
How successful are you when you do that?
Well, sometimes good. It depends. I don't have people call me all the time for lost things, but I have two things. My client, both, she called and she was like, it was kind of where you said it was going to be. So, but it was it was her passport. She couldn't find her passport,
Oh,
and then she had something else she couldn't find. It was some other important papers. So, but anyway, it was
I would think
that's
that your mindset has a lot to do with being right on with that too. Like if you're scrambled and your mind's elsewhere and you're just
right.
like, where are my keys? You know, and you're freaking out, you know, that would be a good time to call you because I'm not balanced and I need my keys now because
Well,
I'm
we
heading
all
or
do that. We
passport.
do that. But I will offer that the idea that when we all do that, and then and people get so mad when you say this, or at least I have a niece that does. You'll say, where was the last place you had them?
Yeah.
And they get mad because they go, oh, well, if I knew that, I'd have my key. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, I mean the last place you're mentally aware that you were in possession of that item,
Yeah.
because then you can get into your body. So a lot of it is being in the body. It's like
Right.
many other art, these intuitive arts, is you
Right.
really need to be in contact with your body and then feel into the body and go, the body went that way. Or if I ask, where did their body go? Where did they move to? And I'll say, well, did you do 3 things that day or 4 things that day, or,
Yeah.
2 things that day?
Yeah.
And then it goes from there. So that's one of the things I use it for. Another important thing and this is what they call controlled remote viewing, is you use I think your intuitive talents to, along with getting yourself in that energy and that mindset
Mhm.
of being in a calm state,
Yes.
breathing, and getting to where you can lower your brain waves, and you ask the universe to bring it to you, the information to you. And that's a little different way to do it, rather than the military purely just write down the coordinates and blah blah blah, write down the descriptors. But you can bring things, whether it's the house you want to buy, or is this a good house for me, or again, it could be about something that's missing. But it's really a lot in alignment with manifestation, the way they talk about affirmation manifestation.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is you're getting yourself allowing the field to open up and come to you. It doesn't necessarily come instantaneously to you, but it will pop in or drop in even 72 hours later. You can do it right before you go to bed. People, I don't know, there's techniques, but people say to manifest things before you go to bed,
right,
because you're going to go into delta state.
Yes.
And theta is the one. Delta is really, really deep. That's when you sleep,
Yes.
but all of that can work in delta, but theta is where you want to be. And that's the zone. That's the zone you want to be in.
Right.
So that's why it's important you can do that before you go to bed. But it does go in alignment with manifestation, with things that you want to create.
Right.
But you're also asking for that to come, the answers to come to you.
Right.
So.
Right. And I've heard that also, that's the state. I think we were talking to one of our instructors not too long ago, and she was saying, with all this repetitive news that you hear about, the COVID virus, if you listen to it long enough, it's the same repetitive reel almost,
Yes,
and it reprograms your subconscious into, thinking of fear. This is a really great month for us specifically with remote viewing, because we have this wonderful interview with you today, and then we have the actual class where people can learn how to do this, and you will take them through the steps. But we also have another class, which is remote viewing to clear spaces that are not in front of you, dark energies and dark spaces. That is offered by our Professor Wallenberg, who's offering that, I believe, in a week or so. And she's also doing an interview with us. So this is really remote viewing, time period month for Griffin's Claw. And I'm just so happy that you were able to make it here today. Does anybody else have any comments or chats or anything like that? Any questions you'd like to ask? No, nobody's typing right now, but we'll give you a few more minutes before we close off. For tonight, is there anything that we should bring to and be prepared for? Should we bring a notebook? Should we, bring slippers and pajamas? I mean,
you can dress however you wish. But I was going to start off by saying, yes, notebook, paper and pen. It's funny that even one of the classes I took was like, they were so specific. It had to be a black pen. Like, that just cracks me up. So I don't care what color pen you write with. So
right.
It's fine.
Okay.
But
we do have one question that just popped in. I tend to go too deep, like hypnosis level. Is there a way to keep from going too deep?
That is training. And that's where a lot of this goes. You train yourself, and it's brain entrainment, but it's doing your best to stay conscious. So one of the things that I'll be talking about in classes is just simply they use what they call alpha tones, but really they're isochronic tones. And to me, it's really, I don't have anything handy real quick. Okay, I do too. 1 second. Whether it would be like this, like this is a rattle.
Right.
It was my mom's. She got that when she was a kid. But just a rattle, a tone, it's to keep you, I think partially that keeps you awake, number one. It keeps you out of the state. But they have the tone that they use in one controlled remote viewing. I have to say it was very annoying. It's maybe it would be like, let's see, this. It was like, I'm getting a headache. It really does. And they do mention that you can get a headache from that. And it's,
lovely.
They're going to do it but that keeps you in the state, like stay there, but it trains your brain to stay in that spot.
Right.
So whether you use a drum, you could use a drum. I mean, we can go out when we're doing, but if you're doing the drumming, you're not usually going out.
Right. And then someone just said, sounds like the drumming and shamanic journeying, which is
exactly what I was saying.
Beat.
It is. It's to me, that's really the same. It's to keep you conscious, but to be able to go into a state in non-ordinary reality, which is what you do in remote viewing as well, because you're in that quantum field.
Yes.
Then you allow all the information to come and go to you.
Yes.
So so absolutely, that is, to me, that's how I would think that they are teaching. Now, the one of the resources was that they have you do it with your eyes open. So you're not going to really sleep. I mean, you have to keep your eyes open. And then one of them says, like, instead of like I write, because that's also, again, being in that quantum field, automatic writing.
Yes.
That puts you in that field doing that. If you're good at, if that's the connection that helps you, then go there. But some people may want to speak it aloud, like you would in a journal.
Right.
Same kind of thing, but you stay conscious. And that way because you're using something that keeps you in your body and you're aware.
Right.
So those are two things that I can think of. And then you can find isochronic tones on YouTube.
Yes.
But they're supportive in many different ways. So, but there's the deeper ones are the ones that help you get into theta.
Yes. And I know Sutton used to have all these books and CDs, with the metronome, I think it was. Is that what it's called? That, you can just see it, and it's annoying. To me, it was very annoying. I'd rather listening to a shamanic journey with a drum. But I mean, that was just back and forth, and it was just click, click, click.
Right.
And this is like for like 20 or 30 minutes, and then you go,
right.
Okay, I'm either into it or I'm going to go crazy right now. I got to leave.
But that kept you awake too. That kind of kept the left brain going, like, I hear that ticking, but the right brain could go, okay, pay attention to the ticking. And
Yeah.
No, but it is hard because when you are a hearer, you do hear.
Yeah.
So when you hear, I'm sure that can be very overwhelming.
Yes. So I want to, I'm going to stop recording, and I want to thank everybody for joining us. I hope you can all pop in and see our class tonight, because I think you'll learn an awful lot. For those of you that are on this call, you can stay tuned. I'm going to stop recording, and you can open up your mics and ask any questions that you like. So on behalf of Griffin's Clyde, thank you.